Let me start with a question most landlords already have in their head. If you are leasing out a house, condo, or unit in Ontario, do you actually need a realtor? And I will say it straight, no, you don't. You can list yourself, you can show it yourself, you can even download a lease online and move forward. That part isn't the hard part. The most landlords underestimate is everything that comes after the tenant moves in. That's where leasing stops being simple and starts being regulated. Let me explain. Most landlords go into this thinking, once the tenant is in, it's basically their place. And I understand why that feels logical. But in Ontario, the responsibility doesn't disappear once you hand over the keys. If something breaks, stops working, or becomes unsafe, it still comes back to you. Even when the tenant is cooperative, even when the issue feels small, even when they say, "Don't worry, I will take care of it." Legally, it's still on the landlord. Another thing that surprises people is access. You own the property, but you can't just show up whenever you want. There are rules around notice, timing, and reasons for entry. This is usually the first moment landlords pause and say, "Okay, I didn't realize it worked like this." By the way, if we haven't met yet, my name is Shrikant Verma. I work with landlords and property owners across Guelph, Kitchener-Waterloo, and Cambridge. Most of the conversations I have start with someone saying, "I thought leasing would be easier than this," which brings me to the next point. One of the most common things landlords ask is, what am I actually allowed to ask a tenant? And honestly, the intent is usually good. You want to know if they can afford the rent, you want to know if they are employed, you want to know if they have been responsible tenants before. That's normal. Where landlords get into trouble isn't the question itself, it's how the process plays out. Sometimes questions are asked casually. Sometimes things are written down without thinking twice. Sometimes one applicant is handled differently than another. And most landlords don't realize how important consistency is until it becomes a problem. Same questions, same approach, every applicant. That's not about being strict, that's about protecting yourself. This is where I hear this line all the time. "I already have a lease, I have been using it for years." And I believe it. But in Ontario, there is a standard lease, and anything that goes against it doesn't automatically become enforceable just because it's signed. A lot of landlords assume certain clauses are fine until they are challenged. That's usually when the conversation shifts from "this should be okay" to "why doesn't this hold up?" And that catches people off guard. Quick pause here, because this is important. If you are leasing now or planning to lease soon, I have put together a tenant screening checklist specifically for Ontario landlords. It's practical, it's simple, and it helps you slow down and look at the right thing before making a decision. You will find the link in the description below. Alright, back to it. Another assumption I hear a lot is, "I will just increase the rent next year." In Ontario, it doesn't usually work that cleanly. There are limits, there are notice rules, and timing matters more than most landlords expect. Same thing when someone wants to end a tenancy. On paper, the forms look straightforward. In real life, small mistakes can restart the entire process. That's usually when landlords realize leasing isn't just about finding a tenant, it's about following a system. Let me be very honest here. Most landlord problems doesn't start because tenants are bad people. They start because screening was rushed. A credit score alone doesn't tell the full story. An employment letter by itself doesn't either. What matters is slowing down, looking at the full picture, and being consistent. Good tenants aren't luck. They are the result of solid process. So, Let's go back to the original question. Do you really need a realtor to lease your property? No, you can absolutely do it yourself. But leasing in Ontario isn't about getting someone in quickly. It's about avoiding problems later. If you own a rental property in Guelph, Kitchener-Waterloo or Cambridge and you want clarity around leasing, screening or even whether it still makes sense to keep the property, I'm always happy to have a conversation. No pressure, no obligation. I will see you in the next video.